What's up, slingshot lovers? In this video, we're going to be going back to the old school and talking about shooting rocks. Thank you so much for clicking on the video and welcome to 411 Outdoors. This channel is fairly new and it's dedicated to everything outdoors. It's for outdoor enthusiasts who love everything from various weapons to survival. And I would be honored to have you as a subscriber. Now let's get started. I'll admit, when I got my start in slingshots, I didn't start off shooting rocks. You know, I grew up, hearing about slingshots. I remember back in the 80s, up the road from me, there was this little store and they always sold this little plastic slingshot. It had a big pouch that would allow you to shoot rocks and larger objects. I think my older brother had a slingshot. There was a guy on the news back in the 80s. His name was Rufus Hussey. You ought to go back and look up that video, The Slingshot Man. They did some media coverage on him. He made it on the Johnny Carson. This dude was absolutely deadly shooting rocks. You ought to go back and check out that video. Just type like The Slingshot Man, Rufus Hussey. I think it's R-U-F-A-S-H-U-S-S-E-Y. You'll be blown away at this guy's skills in shooting rocks. I was, watching simple shot videos and Nathan started talking about rock chucking, shooting rocks. And I thought to myself, you know what? I saw people doing that stuff growing up as a kid. I really want to get into it. And I got to say that shooting stones opened me up to a whole new world because, Nathan recommended, shooting stones through a natural fork because the slingshots that you get from Simple Shot are not made for shooting stones. So I started getting into making natural fork slingshots. Here's a couple of the models that I've made. Basically about the same fork spread there, and I painted this one red and painted this one black. So I started doing my research on, how to get out, the proper way to get out and shoot rocks. And the first thing that I discovered was that I needed the right bands and that I needed the right pouch. And at that time, I didn't make my own bands. I was just making my frames. I didn't know how to make my own bands, and Simple Shot wasn't selling what they call rock chucker band. But I discovered that Fowler Makery and Mischief was selling a rock chucker band on his website. You're probably familiar with Fowler if you're in the slingshot world. He's one of the biggest names out there for slingshots. He won the reality show. I think it was Alone. He won that. He's got a huge YouTube channel. Extremely deadly with a slingshot. Just can hit anything. He sells these rock chucker bands. I bought these from him, and here's his Fowler or Warrior rock pouch here. I bought those, but the thing was I paid 12 bucks for his rock chucker bands. A little bit later on, I learned how to make my own bands. I bought a band tying jig from Simple Shot. I bought some big pouches from Simple Shot, and I ordered some latex, various kinds of latex. I made this band set here. Used 1 millimeter thickness latex. It's about the same of the Fowler, the same latex Fowler used, except my band is a little bit wider than his, and my rock bands are a little bit more powerful. Shooting rocks is a lot of fun. You can collect your ammo. It's an endless supply of ammo laying around. You can go down to creeks and creek beds where there's a lot of rocks and just collect all the ammo that you want. And you can go out in the woods and you can just shoot at random, just pick random targets. You don't have to worry about running out of ammo. That's a few things to take in consideration with shooting rocks. When you're shooting an uneven object, it's hard to maintain the best accuracy that you would get from shooting steel or clay. But I've noticed that when you cut down on the distance, it allows you to, hit targets a lot more accurately. There was a time when people hunted, they had to hunt with rocks. And guys like Rufus Hussey, when he was young, he would take rabbits. They would eat the rabbits that were growing up. They would go out hunting, and he was like one of the younger among the siblings. He didn't get to carry the shotgun. He had to learn to shoot rabbits with a rock. I always like to stress eye protection with slingshots, especially when you're shooting rocks. Again, you got to have the right kind of bands, something that's powerful enough to throw the object, and you need a good size pouch. You don't want to get a little pouch that can't wrap around the object. You don't want the object hanging out of the pouch. You want the pouch to be able to cover that object. Don't expect the same amount of accuracy. Rocks like to veer off. They like to go this way, that way. They'll fly straight for a while, and a lot of times I notice they like to veer off. The cool thing about shooting stone, it just connects you to the slingers of the past. And you know, you can get involved in, you know, making your own frames. It's a lot of fun to go out in the woods and, you know, find a nice fork and cut it down and sand it down and get it looking good. Shooting stones is a whole lot of fun. I'm gonna shoot some. I'm gonna take a crack at this little plinker that I've got here. So I cheated a little bit this time. I bought some little white pebbles here from Home Depot. You can go and buy like river stones from Home Depot, Lowe's, places like that. I bought these little white stones here. I'm gonna shoot these. They're fairly even for the most part, but you can find rocks like this out in the woods and down by creek beds and so forth. Shooting rocks is a lot of fun. You know, as the video says, I was about 20 feet from my target. 20-25 is about as far as I like to try to attempt with a rock. Any further than that, the object begins to veer off, especially if it's got some uneven edges to it. Shooting rocks is so much fun. The ricochet is very dangerous. Again, eye protection. I want to leave you with a survival tip with regards to the advantage to getting good with making your slingshot frame, going ahead and buying your latex, having a way to tie your bands. There's a lot of tutorial on that, and I'm going to do one in the future very soon. There's a lot of benefits. I mean, you can feed yourself with a slingshot. You can feed yourself with a slingshot, and if you have a surplus of latex, if you have the ability to tie on your own bands, and you have natural ammo sitting around out on the ground, and you learn how to shoot that ammunition, you can take wild game and feed yourself. If it ever hits the fan, I'm not really a die-hard prepper, but I think about things like that. I think about, you know, what if all I had to feed myself was a slingshot? Well, I'm thankful to have supplies. I'm thankful to get good at being able to hit targets, you know, with a stone, being able to tie on my own band. So that's just a little survival tip to think about. That's one of the cool things about getting good at making slingshots and tying on your own bands and being able to shoot stones is taking wild game and feeding yourself if it ever hits the fan. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope you've been inspired to get out there and shoot stones, protect your eyes, and get the right bands, the right pouch, and look for an evenly shaped rock, and you'll be knocking out those targets in no time. Take care, my friend.